So this introductory workbook is meant to teach you the basics of displacement. So here they say Angela is going to run to the bus and to mark where she is in the first case in part A as 0, and then mark off every other meter from there. So I'll make the 5 big just so you can see it a bit bigger. And that is basically it. So 5, 10, 15 here is the way that they want you to label it. So what is the positive direction then? Well, the positive numbers are going up this way. So we have defined here to the right to be positive. So if we drew a little arrow on there, it would look like that, where to the right is to the positive. That's the default. There's no reason that it has to be that way, but if they never say, probably because we're all right-handed, we tend to draw to the right is positive there. So then they said, well, let's try it a different way. Label where the bus is as 0. So the bus is 0 right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll make the 5 big. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So they called this 0 and this 15. So in this case now, the positive numbers are going up this way. So there's no reason we couldn't define positive to be to the left there. You could do that. So that could have some effects on the way you interpret the problem. So they say after that to part C, which I don't have fully written out, but I'll write it down here. They say in part C on the evidence line, when Angela gets to the position, to the bus right here, and they say use part B. So when she gets to the bus, her position is 0 meters. So I'll write x equals 0 there. And Angela's initial position was 15. So I'm going to write x sub 0 is 15 there. Now we have an equation here that we can set up. Displacement is the change in position. You should have seen that from the summer, which means it is the final position minus the initial position there. So if we apply this to the last line of part C, then it says, therefore, Angela's displacement is the number, so the final position is 0. Her initial position is 15, and so 0 minus 15 is negative 15. That is her displacement. So what does negative 15 mean? Well, clearly she ran 15 meters. The negative just means opposite the direction we've called positive. So if we've called to the left positive, then this means 15 meters to the, let me add a little meter in there, to the left. 15 meters to the right, because positive is defined as to the left there. So last part of this one here is it says in part D, how does the displacement in part C compare to the displacement in part A? Well, let me go back to this in this case. This would be, again, if she started here and wound up here, it'd be negative 15 meters. Let's do that again up here. She winds up at the bus, so that's her final position. She started at 0, so final displacement is still final minus initial. So in this case, it would be 15 minus 0, so her displacement is 15 meters. So the difference here is positive 15, negative 15. It's the same, we say it like this. We say it's the same magnitude, meaning the same amount, 15 meters, but opposite direction. And in some sense, you could argue she ran in the same direction, like us looking at it, she ran to the right. But in one case, we defined to the right as positive, and in one case, we defined it as negative. So that would change the sign of it there. Here's a good question. If Angela ran to the bus and back where she started, what distance would she traveled? And compare that to her displacement. Well, if she runs from here and back, 15 meters that way, 15 meters back, so the distance she would run here would be 30 meters. 15 there and 15 back for a total of 30. But what would be her displacement? Remember, displacement is always final minus initial. So another way to think about displacement is the length of a line from where you started to where you wound up. So in this case, it would be 0 meters is where she finished, 0 meters is where she began, so her displacement is actually 0 meters in that case. So 30 meters of distance traveled, and yet her displacement, the line from where she began to where she wound up, is 0 meters.